At 544 yard target, MOA. It's about 5 inches. Let's see if this little 6 Creedmoor can get it done. Very small plate. Positional shot, standing. Leveled. Let's hold half mil with the wind. Impact. This thing's a tack driver. 708 yards. 3.8 mils. 105 VLD on a 6 Creedmoor. See if this thing can get it done here. Impact. First round. Do this again. That is a tack driver. Well guys, in this video I want to talk about what makes a custom PRS rifle accurate. Now, not only have I been building a lot of Rim X's and 22 long rifles, I do build a lot of centerfire rifles as well, particularly around the PRS game. So in this video, I'm going to talk about a custom chamber, the benefits of a custom chamber, and a match reloading die for it. You guys like this one. Stay tuned. So one of the main common questions I usually get on my centerfire rifle builds are, what barrels do you use? Well, I primarily lean towards Krieger, and Krieger has really treated me very well. Always order them from the actual Krieger catalog, not from Krieger Direct. So these are hand selected by the foremans there at the shop, and I always pay a little bit extra. So it is guaranteed that these bore diameter and the bore itself is going to be pretty uniform. Now, I also use Douglas barrels, and I've had really good luck with Douglas barrels. They give me the heavier contours, and for these competition rifle builds, folks like to get those really heavy MTUs. Now, this being a 223 that I'll build in a later project, this one is a typical MTU contour, which ends around a 930. So most folks like to go a little bit bigger, so what I do is I order these things in a 32-inch length, and it allows me to cut it back around 26 or 28 inches, and it'll be around a 9 or a .980 or 1 inch. Now, being somewhat new in this custom rifle gunsmithing world, I've built pretty much over 600 rifles in the past 3 years, but I've always kept an open mind, and one of the best advices I've gotten for folks that have been building rifles for a long time, including Gordy Gritters, is to keep humble and keep an open mind and try out new techniques. Now, I've seen a lot of great gunsmiths kind of close their mind, you know, kind of on their high horse, saying this is the best way to do things. And unfortunately, you know, some techniques are better in certain ways than others, and unless you're willing to learn all those other techniques, there's really no way you're going to improve your product. So I've started off with a floating reamer holder. Now, I started off using the Bald Eagle floating reamer holder, have gotten great results. I've then since changed how I actually chamber rifles. Now, a good friend of mine, Anthony, that came down from Crown Ridge Barrel Works, has given me one of the best advices, and that is to pre-drill and chamber first before doing any kind of tenon work. So I've then since changed my technique on chambering barrels to basically chambering first or pre-drilling first before doing any kind of tenon work. So I spent a lot of time developing tooling and also getting my tailstock dialed in order to hold the reamer with a solid reamer holder. Now, I'm using a bore through flush system as well to get that perfect finish, but having a solid reamer holder is a huge benefit over a floating reamer holder, simply because when it cuts the chamber, it's going to be more to the exact measurement of the reamer versus having a floating reamer holder. Now, when you have a floating reamer holder, there's a tendency of that reamer to follow the bore, and any kind of curvature in that bore will induce on the actual case head side of the chamber. So you could actually oblong the actual case head side, which in fact could cause loose fitment of your actual cartridge. So in my opinion, a good riflesmith that cuts these custom barrels should know exactly what full-length size and die best fits the chamber of the reamer. If they don't know this, well then they're obviously not taking measurements and paying attention to the dimensions of the reamer that they're cutting. So for instance, this 6mm GT finishing reamer. I ordered this specifically from JGS to fit the Alpha Munitions OCD2 brass. Now there's different versions of the 6mm GT, different freebore measurements as well as case dimensions, and since the 6mm GT has kind of a non-standard sizing die that's in the market, there's a lot of sizing dies out there that just doesn't seem to fit the brass perfect. So when I build these custom barrels for the 6mm GT, there's a huge benefit with what I do is I actually order a sizing reamer as well. This one's actually from Dave Manson, which best fits the chamber reamer of this actual 6mm GT. Now the sizing reamer allows me to build a custom full-length sizing die, and the biggest benefit to that is case fitment is going to be key. It's going to be an awesome fitment of the brass. You're going to get a little bit more brass life, obviously lower SDs, and as well as better accuracy. So here's an example of some of the dies that I make. Now these are made from Newland Precision blank reloading dies. So these things come pretty much with just a pilot hole for the caliber you plan on shooting. And what I do is I chuck these on the lathe, indicate it. I got an extension that will screw onto the back of this die here. Allows me to use the spider of my lathe to get the center line bore in line exactly how I want it before cutting it. So one of the things I also pay attention to is the lock ring. I would either cut off about 1 thou or 2 thou in the lock ring, make sure everything is perpendicular to the bore, and obviously the sizing reamer will be punched through and have that thing cut exactly to the chamber. So this is my 6-arc full-length sizing die that I use for my bolt guns, and this is a bullet seating die for a 6GT. I also have a full-length sizing die as well, but this is also made by Newland Precision. It does have a Mitutoyo micrometer bullet seating stem right here, and this stem is profiled around the 109 and 112 match burner. Now if I feel giddy, I can also make my own die coming from a barrel stub that I've cut off from previous barrels, and that's something that I also do. Now this does cost a lot of labor and it is very pricey. Now there's also services out there like Short Action Customs, believe that makes custom dies, but somebody that's going to be cutting your chamber should offer a full-length sizing die to match that chamber if you're trying to chase accuracy. All right, so case fitment is key to have this thing to be super accurate, matching with the reloading die. So when you have this brass in there, there's absolutely zero play in this thing, and you can see it's a pretty much airtight seal. In fact, you can see it right there. It's a very tight fitment on this brass. So this is a benefit of having a solid reamer holder in the back, is that when it cuts the chamber, it's going to be completely straight, and you can see the fitment on that is extremely tight. There is zero play. Now with brand new brass with no primer, you can see that even with the brand new brass there is zero play at all. So that's how I have these chambers set up. So PRS shooters are typically high volume shooters, and these 6mm cartridges are typically barrel burners. Now how I set these things up is right at the minimum go gauge or minimum SAMI standard. This will allow for more barrel life of the actual barrel itself, and also give you the longer longevity of the brass and brass fitment. Now like I said, if there's a SAMI standard, I do use a SAMI go gauge and have it to where it locks down with just very slight resistance. So the chamber is always inspected before removing the barrel. Now check out those lands and grooves. This is a benefit of a solid reamer holder. The square cuts on the lands and grooves are very uniform. And then look at the free bore area. A mirror finish, zero tooling marks. That is the benefit of a bore through flush system. The shoulder area as well, very minimal tooling marks, almost looks like a mirror finish. The chamber as well. Now, like I said, this is reamed without it even being polished. Nothing going through this chamber, just the reamer itself. And this is what it should look like. So jumping back to the reloading dies, a lot of folks will consider that building a custom full-length size die is kind of overpriced and will probably stray them away. However, some of the mainstream cartridges like the 6mm Creedmoor can benefit off a tight chamber that's built around the actual semi-spec brass. So this reamer specifically, I've had this thing ground down. This is from Dave Manson. I really favor Dave Manson reamers. They do a great job with the chamber side. But these are spec'd out to fit the semi-spec cartridge, 6mm Creedmoor, but this one is with a 105 free bore. So this is optimized for the 105 and 109 grain burgers. Now, this specific reamer actually best fits the Mighty Armory full-length size and die, and also the Redding full-length size and die, as well as the Redding body die. Now, how do I know this? Is because I've spent a lot of time basically shooting these rifles that I built and reloading for them, and from my experience I could say that these dies right here will fit this reamer here. So the guys that build custom rifles, there's a true benefit to folks that actually shoot your rifle downrange. Not only does it guarantee the accuracy, it guarantees the reliability of your rifle, and obviously the experience gained from shooting your rifle and reloading for it can be passed on to the consumer, thus you could get the same kind of performance. Now, the other benefit that I offer is obviously the load development and reloading side of my custom rifle builds. Now, I'm trying to offer something a little bit different in the market. Not only do I guarantee the accuracy due to the fact that I actually shoot your rifle downrange, I actually do perform a little bit of a load development. So in part 2, I'm going to talk about some of the, I guess, conspiracy as well as myths about the reloading side of a custom built rifle and how to get your performance right away. Now, what you want to do for reloading is spend as less time behind the reloading bench and more time downrange, and less time behind the 100-yard mark. So in part 2, we're going to go over some of the reloading aspects of basically matching a custom built load to your custom rifle and what exactly you should be seeing as far as results. Well, folks, if you don't mind, smash that thumbs up button. That really does help me out on these videos. Like I said, part 2 will be coming up shortly. Stick around, you'll like that one. Thanks for watching.